welcome everybody to this afternoon's presentation by John Pointer. This is going to be really an interesting conversation. If you have questions later on, we're going to ask you to put them in the chat box so they can be seen by Cameron and John. I also want to remind you that we are recording this session, and so you be aware of that. And then we also want to make sure that if you want to see just the speaker, you have to do that yourself. Do speaker view. Make sure to do that as well, so you can see. I'm Warren Nash. I'm the director of the Allmen Center for Entrepreneurship. I'm joined by Miriam Gorgian and Kelsey Drury today, and I appreciate the efforts and the work that they're doing. So, start the story. Cameron and I met as part of boot camp, and he'll talk about that. But this whole event has come apart because of Cameron Brown.
Yes.
And so I think it's exciting. And I'm going to introduce him to, he is the CEO and founder of Acumen Media. He's going to talk a little bit about that company, where it is, where they're going. And this is something he's started recently. It should be interesting. And then we'll go into John's presentation. Go, Cameron.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Warren. Just a little bit of background on myself. I went to University of Kentucky, graduated this last year. So go Wildcats for everyone on here. Really, excited to be able to talk to you guys a little bit more and get some free publicity for Acumen overall. So yeah, but I met Warren, as you mentioned, a little over 4 years ago now. And I came into, his office. It was him and Miriam, a wide-eyed kid, just shooting out ideas. And they kind of helped me understand, what these ideas meant, how to, pursue kind of some of the things that I had planned. And I tried to start a company and I failed, but Warren and Miriam actually helped keep me on track to figure out the best route I needed to go. And they continue to keep me on track. And now I have people like John on here and other people that are helping me, continue to figure out the best ways to continue to pursue what we're building. So as Warren mentioned, I will, go a little more.
Can I interrupt for a second? I need to introduce Chuck Courtemanche, who is the director of the Institute for the Study of Free Enterprise. Chuck, are you still with us?
So the Institute for the Study of Free Enterprise's mission is to generate intellectually rigorous research and an open dialogue to discover and understand how free enterprise affects people's lives and the well-being of society. And so one of the main ways we aim to fulfill this mission is by hosting public events on a variety of free enterprise related topics. And we're grateful for financial support from the Joseph W. Kraft III and Charles Koch Foundations, which allow us to host events like these. And of course, we'd also like to thank our partners for tonight's event, the Von Allmen Center and the UK Salesforce Club. So, John, welcome again. We're delighted you could join us, and I look forward to hearing your talk.
Just real quick, before we kick back into camera, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Von Allmen Center. The Von Allmen Center works with students, with faculty, with community member entrepreneurs to create businesess, to expand businesses, and we do programs like this. So I want to make sure that everyone understood our purpose and role in this. And then the key that we have, our headline program is the boot camp, and that's what Cameron was talking about. And that leads me right back to you, Cameron.
Perfect way. Just spinning back around. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So as Warren was just mentioning, I went through boot camp about 4 or 5 years ago. It was just a great experience overall. I definitely will not be where I am today without boot camp. And I wouldn't have met John more than likely, as well as been able to progress in my career in other ways. So I'm going to take a little moment to again get some free pub with Acumen, tell you guys a little bit about it, tell you where you guys can go ahead and sign up for our beta release as well. And then I'm going to kick it over to John. We're going to keep it very conversational. Again, we do open questions up. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I do have questions prepared for John as well. But we would love for you guys to, if any questions come up, just to ask. John's a great guy, easy to talk to. So this is going to be fun overall for everyone. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And it looks like you guys can see it now. So as Warren mentioned, I did start in boot camp, and I actually wanted to try to start a company similar to Acumen under a different name. But now we are Acumen Media, and what we're creating is a platform that for the first time gives sports fans a true community and true interaction with their favorite athletes, while giving athletes complete control over their brand. So the problem that we saw overall is that these traditional outlets aren't attracting the next generation and even current sports fans. Social media has created a sports fan that is more needy than ever before, right? While on the flip side, athletes actually have the ability to better reach their audience. The overall problem is it's actually not efficient. When these athletes are going to Instagram and when they're going to YouTube, they have to jump through a lot of hoops before they can effectively monetize, their brand and their content. So when you're on YouTube, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 active users on your platform before you can make money. And that's just the beginning. So what we decided to do was create a platform that gave these athletes the complete control over their brand. They will have their own customizable profile. They'll be able to directly connect with their audience, as well as have complete control over their brand. So what are you getting as a sports fan out of our platform? If you're a sports fan, what you're going to get is a community. When we're talking about sports, I know most of us on here are Cats fans. When we're talking about sports or when we're going to games, you're going to games with your friends or with your family. You're not going alone. So we wanted to make sure that we still had a community feel to the platform overall. But the value proposition is now you can purchase exclusive content as well as exclusive merch directly from your favorite athletes. And it doesn't stop there. You can also purchase live interactions. And what that means is you can pay to play video games with your favorite athlete. You can pay to go live with your favorite athlete, and many other interactive options that we're going to offer for our users. And then what do athletes get? So as I mentioned, they will have their own customizable profile that will have their own merch, as well as their own content, as well as the live interactions that they want to offer. But again, the value proposition is now they can charge each user to view their content. So they're going to either charge users on a one-to-one payment. So you're going to pay per video, pay per merch, or pay per interaction, or you can subscribe to your favorite athlete. And when you subscribe to your favorite athlete, what you'll receive is all of the content that they have, as well as the merch that they will send to you once a month. And then lastly, you will have to still make in-app purchases for some of those live interactions. And then just leaving it here, and this is a perfect segue to John. Some of our advisors actually played football here at UK. Keenan Burton, he's an advisor of the company. John Pointer, great to have him on today. He's also an advisor of the company. We got Bram Weinstein, worked at ESPN for over 20 years on the set of SportsCenter as well as an advisor. We have athletes like Cole Anthony, Bam Adebayo, and Von Bell, who are all signed in. And then we have Throne Media as a partner. They are a sports marketing and production agency as well. So that's a little bit about Acumen. You can actually find us at acumenmedia.us, ACUMENMEDI.us. And you can follow us on Instagram at Acumen Media Official as well. If you go to our website, if you go scroll to the bottom of the page, you will be able to sign up for our beta and be added to our wait list. We're at about 600 users for the wait list right now, and we're going to max it out. A lot of details that go with that. We're going to max out at 2,000 users, keep the platform exclusive, and then do a public launch. But as I mentioned, John is actually an advisor for the company. That's how me and John met. We connected via LinkedIn. We talked for a little bit. I told him what my plan was for Acumen, told him how I thought he could get involved. Right. So as John and I continued to talk, he would tell me a little bit more about himself, and he has a very interesting story, which I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to let him share it himself. Right. But yeah, so that's a little bit about John Pointer. I'm going to open the floor up to you, John. I'm going to start off by asking you the first question, which everyone's probably wondering. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Hello, Cameron. Hello, Warren. Hello to University of Kentucky. I hope you guys are doing great. This is a great opportunity for me to be on this evening. And Cam, I'm just so appreciative of you. Warren, I'm appreciative of you and Christine and Chuck. I'm looking forward to having conversations in the immediate future with you, sir. It's important that all of you beautiful young people out there understand that there's a methodology to this madness. of wanting to be an entrepreneur. Some will be born, some of you all are born with it. Others, you have to work a little bit extra to get in that groove. But believe you me, if you've got it, you'll know it. You'll know that you're born to be an entrepreneur. And I hope in this conversation this evening that a segment of my life story will be important, imperative for you all to reach the sky. The sky's the limit. Cameron is now pulling up. I sent Cameron just a little bit about my life story. This gentleman here is Bob Obilovich. He was my former head football coach in Toronto. I played in the Canadian Football League, the Toronto Argonauts, and you know, I've never had someone to express themselves about me this way. Now, I've had a lot of people curse me out and tell me exactly what they think of me in a negative sense. Or if you've done a good job, you know, let you know, good job, well done. But Bob put this in writing in a sports journal about me, and I just wanted to let you guys know, this has been a part of me from, as young people say, from the get-go, from the start of my young life. I've always felt, well, I'm not the smartest one in the room, but let me stay focused, let me stay positive, let me keep these wheels turning, and I think I can get a little traction.
That's perfect. So John, can you tell us a little bit more about growing up in Tennessee?
This young puppy grew up in Middle Tennessee, Columbia, Tennessee. I want you all to know that I was blessed to have so many role models. A couple of guys went to Tennessee State University and during their period, James Kelly, tight end, was the black, they won the black college championship, and he went on to play with the Chicago Bears. Joe Reynolds, a defensive end, played in the SEC at Vanderbilt. My journey began in Columbia, and my senior year, I stayed focused, I worked hard. I was an academic All-American honorable mention. I was All-State. I was a #1 linebacker in the state of Tennessee. So I had all the ratings. And right during this period, young people, you need to understand the Jim Crow law, segregation, had just ended in 1968. So therefore, the colleges, the universities were still adjusting. Coach Paul Bear Bryant in the Southeastern Conference made the key initiative moves to start recruiting a good portion of African-American males from the southeastern part of the United States. So the floodgates were open. I was recruited by every imaginable university in the South. I was recruited by universities such as Penn State, Notre Dame, Iowa, other universities, but I chose Vanderbilt. So I played and graduated my 4 years at Vanderbilt. I'm an English major, almost had a double major in communications. It was tough, but yet it was well worth it. Now, let me tell you, I was recruited by the University of Kentucky. Fred Kersey was smart enough that he waited until the end of the football season and he called me. Fred Kersey, the former head coach at Kentucky. He wanted to fly me in a private jet, sit me behind, bring me to the basketball game at Rupp Arena and sit me right behind the basketball team. And I thought, man, is this heaven or what? But I told him thank him. I thanked him very much, and I had to move on. Kentucky just wasn't in my decision making, and I was during that time trying to make a decision where I was going to go. So that's my Kentucky story.
That's perfect, John. That's perfect. You mentioned you obviously grew up in Columbia, Tennessee, in the 60s, 70s. Can you tell us a little bit about how that impacted you as a football player, as a person, and then later on, obviously, as a business person?
As a student athlete, it was great because less than 10 feet from here is my wonderful mom. My mom was a school teacher for nearly 40 years. My father was the first African American in the state of Tennessee to be elevated and promoted as the director of A&P food stores. A&P stood for Atlantic and Pacific. They were the Walmarts of America back then. And my father used to train white future managers. They would come to Columbia, be it from the border tip of Kentucky all the way down to Alabama. They would come to Columbia and my dad would train them. And Dad never showed any frustration. He just bided his time. And in the mid 70s, early 70s, he was promoted as manager of A&P food store right there in Nashville, right on West End, right behind, right in front of Vanderbilt's football stadium. So that was part of some of my decision making as well to go to Vanderbilt. So it was great timing.
And you were touching on Vanderbilt and what it meant to be an athlete, it's specifically, a Black athlete or minority athlete in the 70s is different now. We see guys like LeBron James who led the path with being more than an athlete, speaking out. What did it mean to be an athlete at Vanderbilt, a predominantly white institution in the 70s? What type of impact did that have on you as a football player and then, as a future business person?
Cameron, great question, because as a matter of fact, one of my role models is listening in right now. He's watching my former teammate, James Thrillkill. Hey, JT. James Thrillkill was a star player at Vanderbilt, played in Nashville. And I remember my freshman year, we just finished summer practice and we were going for lunch as a group of guys. And there was a protest at the Memorial Gym. And they were protesting about anti-apartheid concerns about South Africa. Well, James and another one of my mentors, my linebacker, my guy that I mirrored, Kimmy Weaver, they decided to go and join the protest. And of course, we were giving all the guys hard time. All those guys were giving him a hard time. But to let you know that James, and I tell James to this day, that I tell him about that story, how it impressed me. It gave me an understanding that there's more that we can do. There's more that when the eyes and the hand claps and the salutations are offered to us as athletes, we can let those numbers know, hey, we need your help. We need your assistance in understanding these issues that are impacting many. And I was, ever since that day in summertime in 1976, I've been an activist all my life. Thanks to you, JT.
That's great to hear, John. And I know that's a big part of your story. Obviously, we connected on a sports, front, but the more I got to learn about you, you have a very interesting story that a lot of athletes don't have. Obviously, you went and played in Green Bay, but I want you to talk a little bit more before you talk about Green Bay about some of the things you've done for your community, overall.
Well, I got to add this. Forrest Gregg at that time, Hall of Famer himself, and what a gentleman, was monitoring me, he and his staff, they were monitoring me while I was at Vanderbilt because we lost all the time. And he just liked certain things about me, and I was really appreciative of it. And he invited me to Cincinnati Bengals. I flew into camp that afternoon after graduating at Vanderbilt. Weeks later, a month or so later, I was released by the Packers. Well, the Canadian scout for the Edmonton Eskimos, a perennial national champion there in Canada, and they call their Super Bowls, which is the grandfather of the Super Bowl, the original Super Bowl, the Grey Cup. The Grey Cup is 167 years old, I do believe. The Grey Cup winners of 4 years at that time, well, they invited me to come to Canada. I played there in Canada for 5 years, met my wonderful wife. We're now married of 37 years. Her name is Victoria. She lives here in Nashville. She sings with every country music star in the studios or in the background, and she loves it, absolutely loves it. But I started in Montreal during the off season being an understudy in the petroleum business. They were looking at me as maybe being an extended petroleum marketing rep in the States. And I didn't know where it was going to take me. So once I retired, I went to Green Bay during the strike season. Forrest Gregg wanted me to stay. I decided, hey, I really have jump-started my petroleum business and I need to get down there and manage it. I got a government contract from the Small Business Administration and got things going. As a matter of fact, in less than 2 years, that was 87 when I retired. In less than 2 years, I received a U.S. congressional proclamation as being a top-rated minority businessman. So I was going great guns. Unfortunately, with Small Business Administration, they're still having problems. The investor was a Bernie Madoff type of guy, stealing millions. Ultimately, it was identified he stole over $50 million that was designed by Congress to aid and assist women, minorities, military veterans, disabled military veterans, and LGBTQ small business companies here in the state of Tennessee. So I personally stood up and addressed these issues. I took it as far as Vice President Al Gore's legal counsel, and that got the ball rolling on a whistleblowing effect. Those are some of the accomplishments in my first business as the owner of a petroleum distribution business. Sometimes, and this young people from as entrepreneurs in life, you're going to find out you're going to have a lot of people that support you initially on your business endeavors, on anything that you're standing claim to fame on, in a positive sense. And what happens is that people peel off from you. They step away, and that's what happened with me when I identified that there was possibly fraud going on as far as the Small Business Administration and their investor. Other portfolio firms decided they didn't want to be involved. They were afraid. So I had to stand up and fight for many years the fraud and the investigation. And what you ultimately have to understand, the government will need all the vital resources that you have that you can guide them for discoveries. And it takes you to some pretty dark places. And Ended up, lost my company. We went bankrupt. All the financial horrors about being a whistleblower, death threats, racial threats, the whole 9 yards. Even this SBA investor, when he was found guilty of criminal fraud, the judge sent him home under house arrest. In less than 4 days, he was found dead in his home. So it is a very, very dark hole, and people try to think that they could, scam others. And unfortunately, this hurts so many African American businesses, so many white female businesses, white males also, because there were white males that are Vietnam veterans, military veterans and disabled veterans. Well, these funds were designed to assist them as well, and LGBTQ small business owners in the state of Tennessee. They were harmed when $50 million is not allocated to assist their business development.
Completely right, John. A lot of people understand the impact that small decisions of, some people have on, the general community, or the impact of the government to act or to not act on certain decisions can impact the community overall. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, what I want to add is that you have to pick yourself up. You have to pick yourself up and move to the next level. I always felt that I could make an impact in so many different ways. I still had a focus of wanting to be an entrepreneur. So first things were first. I had to get jobs. I had to get started. We had a young family. And believe it or not, I was invited by two governors of the state of Tennessee. One, I was invited to be the state director of the minority business program for the Tennessee Department of Transportation. In that department, in that division, that was a major lawsuit against TDOT's minority business program. Within less than 2 years, I went in, I cleaned out bogus companies that were getting at least close to $800 million worth of government contracts, Tennessee Department of Transportation contracts, road payments, interstate, all of that. That's TDOT. You've got KDOT in the state of Kentucky. And as soon as I turned in my information, the commissioner terminated me based under executive orders. He has the executive right to terminate me, sort of what we experienced under President Trump, releasing people constantly under executive orders. So I lost my career as a state director, Tennessee Department of Transportation. The next, and that was under a Republican governor. Democrat governor brought me back into the state. He wanted me to head up Section 8 in a Tennessee Housing Development Agency. So again, you just have to you got to dust your britches off and pick yourself back up and keep going. You must work hard at it at all times. And I didn't say this, Cameron. Getting back to my company, Pointer Oil Company, I had generated about close to $27 million worth of gross contracts in federal, state, in city, municipal contract opportunities, Department of Defense. That was doing Desert Storm. Also in the Olympics in Atlanta, I was selling to the city of Atlanta. I was selling fuel also to so many other different places. Then that was with Pointer Oil Company, one that I had to shut down initially. So again, you fall down, you've got to get back up.
That is a great point, John. Go ahead, sorry.
my social entrepreneur, this is not really a good picture for social entrepreneur. Jeff Beck, the co-founder of eBay, is someone that excited me about what he's doing globally as a social entrepreneur. I want you all as future leaders of society, as entrepreneurs, to become a social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneurs, the definition is that with their contacts, with their education, intelligence, monies, you can help guide supportive measures to make a difference. I wasn't a social entrepreneur there. I was just assisting when Nashville had a big flood downtown, and we had a Christian academy not too far from where I live go under, and ABC's Extreme Makeover was in town for about 2 weeks. It was so hot. That was on Thursday. The last day, Friday, was like 94, 95 degrees, when they used to do on the camera, move that bus. I couldn't stay that long. I couldn't make it until everybody would chant, move that bus. So I didn't stay for that. But that was, as a matter of fact, I met a professor and her class from Western Kentucky. She invited me to come and speak. She was in charge of leadership programs at Western Kentucky. So, you never know. And we were down in the trenches, dirty, sweaty, and she invited me to come and speak. So you find your pleasures when you can and where you can as entrepreneurs. And I've always been able to do that.
Social entrepreneur is a very popular term right now, but I want to circle back to some more popular terms that are, that have become popular right now, or buzzwords or right now, which are diversity and inclusion. Can you touch a little bit more on like what diversity and inclusion mean to you? Again, someone who, again, was raised in the 60s, played football in the 70s, where things were a lot different than they are now. I wanted to circle back around for there, and then I'm gonna circle back around to the entrepreneurship aspect.
Cameron, diversity and inclusiveness is about how serious a private business, how a private institution, state-funded institution, a federal government institution are regarding of everybody could be involved that has the right credentials. When you alienate a group of people because you don't like their colors, you don't like because they're females, you don't like because of other variant reasons, it creates a gap. It creates a major void that it takes forever to try to get straightened out. I mean, you think about it. Here it is that I have now gone on record, and it's been documented. I've stopped collectively through other activist roles here in Tennessee. I've stopped billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse, particularly in funds that are to support these women on, minority on, military veteran on, LGBTQ on businesses, and that creates an economic wealth gap. Right now, that is a big cliche word right now, words. Economic gap wealth, because it's hard to catch minorities, military veterans, and others back into mainstream America if there's no funding, if there's no proper funding.
100%. And we actually have a question from Patrick Walker. How you doing, Patrick? Thank you for being up here. Another, great individual who does a lot, for University of Kentucky and for, the minority students there overall. Just to give a shout out to Patrick. But his first question is,
Thank you, Cameron. John, I just have to say, man, you are giving me so much life as a living legend I'm so glad my friends at VASE and ISIF have brought you. I wish we could have you in person, but you're speaking so much wisdom. And I honor you and all that you're doing for not being afraid to tell the truth. So I'm going to shut up now and just listen. But I just wanted to say that it's a privilege
Bless
to
you,
be in your
Patrick.
presence, sir. Thank you.
Patrick, I didn't tell you about the dark side of being a whistleblower, being an activist, racial and death threats and phone calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the mornings. And we're talking about from government officials. We're talking about government officials. I remember the last day of judgment dating back to the Small Business Administration's court proceedings. And the judge found their investor guilty of fraud. I remember a government official turning to me and my brother in the courtroom, and he pretty much said, now we found our guy, we got our guy. John, I don't see any Tennessee's judge here down south is going to believe a black man owned a petroleum business here in the state of Tennessee. Good luck in trying to find your funds. And he went away smirking. He went away chuckling. Now, my linebacker mindset, I wanted to snatch him up. I wanted to snatch him up right there, Mr. Patrick. But I know that there's other battles that I had to contend with, and life had to go on. So I didn't want to be replaced, the convict, by me being a convict. So I had to allow things to be what they were.
That's perfect. Patrick was asking a question as well, John, that leads directly from what you were saying. But what specifically should the NFL be doing more to support African Americans and minority communities? You see the NBA, showing that trying to do a lot, and you look at leagues like the NFL, which is 90%, African American or minority overall, kind of give a little pushback. But what do you think the NFL could be doing, a little bit more to support African American and minority communities, whether in entrepreneurship or overall? Great question, Patrick.
The NFL, Patrick and Cameron, and the rest of my wonderful you great students. What I'm seeing and what you all should now understand, these Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 corporations and the NFL that make several $1 billion a year as a nonprofit, you see them acknowledge that they're throwing millions towards an interest in supporting social justice. You're seeing our brand new president and his administration, and this is not about politics, creating executive orders and implementing new policies. But here's the issues. Can you change the end user or the administrator that has to offer the funds, especially to you entrepreneurs, that commercial lender, that private investor that's co-funded by major corporations or the federal government or the state government in your states, and you're thinking and you're hoping that your business proposal is good to go, and you're thinking that those funds will be there for you. You can't change someone's heart. If they decide that they don't want to support Cameron Brown because the color of his skin, there will continue to be gaps of wealth issues, because you can't change unless they put more into formative management. You've got to have better oversight. I testified in Washington, D.C. several years ago on the fact that Congress and Senate needs to implement more of a better oversight and watching commerce, watching treasury, watching Federal Reserves. You've got to monitor these programs. If a bank doesn't lend to minorities or to women-owned businesses, and you come by after 10 years and you decide, well, we need to implement some type of strategic planning for it, it's too late. That's 10 years of a deficit. That happened to me. I stopped fraud and abuse in a co-investment organization here in Middle Tennessee, whereas the U.S. Department of Agriculture were sending multiples of millions of dollars to support rural and urban small businesses in Middle Tennessee. And they also did it in certain other regions in the state of Tennessee. And I had purchased a Sears hometown store franchise that had been doing very well. And then I brought the company to another level in business development opportunities, and they declined me. So there was an investigation. They were found a misdeed of not offering minorities nor women-owned businesses of Middle Tennessee. So they got a tap on their hand. But I didn't get a loan from it. I helped them by identifying, hey, they're not lending Washington, D.C., U.S. Department of Agriculture, they're not utilizing the monies that it's purposed for. So it just takes a lot of energy out of some of these initiations that right now our 46th president is going to find out this stuff is just not going to happen overnight. It's not. And that's no disrespect. It's no disrespect for our current president. And I'm not trying to make it political, but I'm just being an entrepreneur, being a whistleblower, being an activist in these specialized small business development interests. There's going to be continual problems.
And, you're making a great point. And I think to circle back around to the NFL, everyone remembers the Colin Kaepernick situation. And then you look to the current Super Bowl where they had the ad or the commercial where they were promoting, inclusion and diversity. Again, there goes those buzzwords. But, just speak on a little bit more about some of the stuff that the NFL is trying to do, as long as, again, historically, we can say every company probably got it wrong at one point just because, people change with the times. They have to change with the times in order to become a company. But what if the NFL, didn't do in the past, and what are they going to do in the future to make sure that they get it right next time?
Excellent question. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm helping former NFL players and their families in small business development. Most importantly, if they're minority businesses, case in point, billions every year, and students at University of Kentucky, you need to know this. Billions of dollars are doled out in procurement plans from the state government, federal government, the Fortune 500 companies, just for an example, in the state of Kentucky, let alone across America and in each state, in each municipalities, major cities. And my point is that right now, the NFL is allowing me to help minority businesses who may be struggling or don't know their way during this COVID disaster recovery process. I'm trying to see if there could be more involvement. But right now, I think overall, in answering your question, Cameron, there must be more hands-on. You just can't say, we're donating $500 million to United Way. We're donating, this many dollars, millions of dollars in support of social justice and talking to the police departments. There's got to be more involvement. And I'm talking more about we small business owners. Small business owners, you are America. America ticks because of you. We need you out there. Look how many issues that we're having problems with. And look how many small business companies in your neighborhood right now that are shut down. But getting back to the NFL, and I want to keep it, I'll keep it in alignment. There's got to be more involvement one-on-one. If the NFL would say, University of Kentucky, how can we help the entrepreneurs? How can we help in diversity and inclusiveness in what you guys are developing there for future leaders? There's got to be more of a hands-on. Without a doubt, by the blessings you guys are offering me, I'm letting it be known to the NFL what a great thing that University of Kentucky is doing. I mean, it's a hand in glove thing that we've got to keep generating awareness. You just got to you got to believe in it. You just can't use it as a slogan, diversity and inclusiveness. You've got to walk it, you've got to talk it, and you got to be about it. You have to.
That was great, John. That was great. Patrick asked another great question. And it's basically, do you believe the NFL up to this point, a couple more questions coming in, sorry. Do you believe the NFL up to this point has been reactive, proactive, or complicit with addressing systemic racism? You know, obviously the NFL has been around for, you know, longer than a lot of us on this call, right? Well, maybe not a lot of us, but I know longer than me, right? And now it seems like they're starting to address issues that have been around since 80s, you know what I mean, the 90s, even before then. So, but I'm interested to hear what you think. You know, you've been able to witness both, you know, past generation and the current generation. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Patrick, I grew up in a family that believes in you don't automatically discount somebody and you call them a racist. And my point is that I can tell you, with me connecting with the National Football League and the Alumni Association, that executives told me that 4 years ago, the thought of the NFL getting involved in something that such as this that I brought to them would not even be thought of. So it's about redevelopment, reestablishing themselves. And I think that pendulum is swinging towards more awareness. I'm proud to let you all know that outside of your favorite pro football team, please root for the Houston Texans. My former, well, he had just graduated when I got there, but we've known each other for several years. We knew each other prior to our crossing our paths at Vanderbilt. David Culley is the new head coach at the Houston Texans. A great gentleman, paid his dues, been in the NFL for over 31 years, and now he's the head coach. Was an African-American quarterback in the 70s. He knew, and we knew, more than likely, he was not going to get a chance to play ball at Vanderbilt. But he knew he was focused on wanting to be a coach. What better way to, he got his degree. Everybody loved David. Also, he got opportunities to get into the coaching realm. He started off as an intern and coached in the OVC, Austin P, MTSU, and then look where he is now. I mean, that's perseverance. I got to give him, and I told him that just a few days ago. I'm just so proud of him, so very proud.
John, that's a great point. And it actually leads to your book. Talk a little bit about your book, but it leads to the next question that we have as well. And I don't want to say your name wrong, Marie. So if you want to hop on and, correct me, you can do that. But we have a question from, I'm just going to say Marie Loisel.
Yeah, Marideli.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Thank you about that.
Hello. Thank you for doing this. It's a real honor to listen to you.
And thank you so very much for listening.
She asked a great question, and again, it kind of ties into your book. But you mentioned several times, as a question, John, you mentioned several times the importance of picking yourself up after adversity. In your opinion, what minority entrepreneurs need, what do minority entrepreneurs need to understand about grit, about strategies to move forward as well?
You got to have some kind of faith, whether it's a spiritual faith, whether it's your grandmother, whether it's your mother, whether it's you're an athlete, or whether you're proud that you came from a different environment and different location, and you want to stand your ground and raise your family at the new location. You got to find some kind of positiveness, because I'm going to tell you, entrepreneurs, you're going to get knocked down so many times. You're going to be knocked down so many times. You're going to have to have a callous behind, and that's the way I've always looked towards it. And look around at all the positive things that you've got. Young lady, you've got the University of Kentucky, the colleges of entrepreneurship supporting you. And you can stay in contact with these, your students, your fellow students, for longevity. I mean, forever. You've got professors that, the ones that I know, are very personable, you reach out to them, they respond. That's super positive. Find your niche of positiveness and carry that with you, because when it gets to a point when you don't have any money, trust me, been there and done that. When the lights are turned out and you think I can't make it the next day, through the good Lord's will, you can, and you will. You'll make it through. But get ready. It's going to get rough and tough on you. I mean, you think right now being a student is tough on you with all the different jobs and all the different activities you got going on. When you implement your small business interest, whatever it may be, you've got to understand there's a reason. It's going to take you through a process to make sure, are you tough enough? Can you understand you can forecast your way to a positive and better place if you really believe in your small business? You can make it. I can assure you, it can happen.
Any other questions? If not, I have a few more. Cool. No questions. Well, John, I know you touched a little bit, or you touched a lot, about just kind of your past. I want you to touch a little bit more about your present. Tell some of the things you plan on doing now and you plan on doing in the future as well. Some things that, people can currently be involved with or can look out for that you have coming.
Because my wife and I live here in Music City, USA, a singer-songwriter. I was watching recently information on a fantastic former singer 60 plus years ago. And his thought and what he told people is that he would write down bits and pieces of people's lives every day. He's living and observing people as they're working or living their lives. And some of his songs now are Hall of Fame songs. My point is that what you've got to understand, what takes place is that you got to continue to observe around how your niche, your business is a niche market. All of you great computer business owners, I applaud you. I'm not in that arena, but still, whether you're going to make creative apps, whether you're going to do something else online for marketing, or communications online, you got to understand as well, you've got to have that focus that even though you have to go and work at the grocery store, sometimes while you're at work, think about your small business. Keep either utilize, and you guys are good at it, utilize your cell phone or write notes down pertaining to your small business interests. If you come to my house one of these days, and all of you all are invited here in Nashville, I buy a lot of these at Walmart, and I've got them everywhere throughout the house so I can jot down notes. And if I see something on news, I see something on a television movie, or I see something on the back end of the scroll down from a movie, and I wanted to write down information about that, I'm writing everything. You have to get in that practice. I know that Warren and Chuck and Kristen are teaching you guys just some of those tangibles that you got to have a part of knowing information about book studies. This is the real world. Entrepreneurship is the real world.
100%. John, touch a little bit more on the Indy's Chamber of Commerce, what you guys have planned, what you guys have done in the past, how UK can possibly implement some of the things that they have going on. As you see here, there's 5, strong, Black figures who are obviously trying to make, their community a better place, and not just their community, but the surrounding communities as well. So just touch a little bit more about what you guys are doing with Indy's Chamber of Commerce, and how UK can probably implement some of the same things you guys have done or are going to do.
Well,
maybe get Patrick to lead it.
I was going to say, University of Kentucky students, if you want to really reach out and be dynamic and be creative, I suggest that you guys get in contact with InnoPower, and I can leave that contact information with Cameron. But you can look up innopower.com. He's looking to expand, and it's just a matter of contacting your Chamber of Commerce's, saying, hey, I want to do something, and I'm sure that they've got something on women. Do they have anything on military veterans as far as small business day? Find out if you could be creative and have a conference where you can invite Warren, Cameron, Chuck, myself to your conference. And it could be in Charleston, it could be in Seattle, it could be in Birmingham, it could be somewhere where you utilize this type of setting. I mean, this is not carved in stone. This is a jump start for you to be creative and create your own. This was a great day. It was the University of Notre Dame, their sports and entertainment law students and the professor were on that day that I spoke. We had a blast. It was a good day. Very nice day.
Okay. Any more questions for the audience, from the audience?
Can Warren, Chuck, could somebody give me a generalization of what you all's great students have interest in doing? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, Cameron, about just the thought of medical.
My mute button's always there. Okay, so we have a very strong game development community, and that's one of the growing things. In fact, one of our current boot camp members is done a Kickstarter campaign around his board game that he's developed and doing quite well with that, Badland Wolves. We have all kinds of service industries, anything in IT. Our biggest challenge sometimes is ideas, but there's not software developers to help take those ideas into the market. So we struggle with that.
Yes.
And I'll add to that so the Von Allmen Entrepreneurship Center and the Institute for the Study of Free Enterprise kind of sound similar, right? But they're actually fairly different in scope. for events like this, we intersect, right? But whereas I would look at Warren and his team and the boot camp and so on as, on the ground. This is how you start and run a business. Our institute is almost more, so I'm a faculty member in the economics department. We're almost a little more on philosophical, almost more on the philosophy side, on the policy. We're much more about policy. So for instance, something that really resonated with me is when you talked about, that it's one thing to just throw money at something, to throw money at diversity initiatives, just, so basically you can kind of, look good and look like you're, I'm often somewhat skeptical of the motives of kind of higher level administrators who just, kind of throw money at something so they can say they're doing something, but you don't see the follow through, the attention to detail, the on the ground that you were referring to. So for me and for kind of our students in the economics department, I think that anecdote resonates because it's about policy and it's about policy implementation. Right. And so that's sort of a little bit of a distinction. We're into entrepreneurship, of course, too, but Warren and his team are more the on the ground implementation. We're more policy. I want to say bigger picture a little bit, the philosophy. So we're interested in those aspects as it relates to supporting free enterprise, supporting diversity, supporting equal opportunity, these sort of things. So, for myself and my side, think of it as kind of policy. And in particular, we have a large interest, both, a strength in our econ department, and then also a particular interest among our students is healthcare, healthcare policy, healthcare business. I'm a health economist, technically. So healthcare and government policy would be, things I would add to that list. Oh.
John, you're on mute, but I think Patrick was about to add something as well.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron. John, can you hear us?
John, you can hear, right? You're still on mute, by the way.
John, I'm a faculty member in the Lewis Honors College and an affiliate with the Institute for Free Enterprise. And we support the Von Allmen Center. But I want to mention a study I'm about to do. You mentioned hands-on engagement. I'm about to do a regional study that's going to look at the impact of COVID-19 on African-American and minority businesses in this region. But more than just collect data, that hands-on piece is going to be an opportunity for we as a university to convene different thoughts or conversations, workshops and practices to give them the skill sets on increasing their access to capital. It's going to be an ecosystem event where people's minds can think differently about wealth, tell the truth about racial inequality and free enterprise. The numbers speak for themselves. So we're going to have a chance to confront those things. And I'm going to select 100 participants total in honor of the centennial celebration of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I totally agree with you. It's amazing how the money you mentioned that was earmarked for minority businesses was stolen. And yet banks have a Community Reinvestment Act report that they're supposed to keep on file to be held accountable. And so you're right. And then one more thing you said, changing people's hearts and minds. I think that has to be a divine and spiritual thing. If you don't have the empathy, I don't know how to do that other than through my faith. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because no matter what we say, the leadership in the NFL, they really got to believe in what they're doing. And you're right, the pendulum has swung. So I'm going to shut up and give everybody else a chance, but you got me having church and all excited up in here. So I just want to just
thank you, Patrick. And let me say this, using my notebook, I want to respond first to Warren. Warren, service, tell your beautiful people that service care right now could be, these young people could come out of the block being some of the new leaders after this in this COVID disaster recovery process. And service is so imperative. And let me tell you, some of you who read a lot, we all know about Uber. I've used Uber a couple of times. I'm old school. I like it. And when I grew up in Columbia, there was an African-American, Mr. Whitaker, Ollie Whitaker. He was a cab driver, and his wife, Miss Ruth, was my first grade teacher. She was his public service lady. She'd tell him, go pick up the next customer. Let me tell you, Uber, as you all know, once they hit the ground running with that Wall Street monies, they've been having complications and problems. Now it's been released that Uber has signed a 2 to 3 year government contract to support government officials in their transportations. Uber, and what's the other transport company?
Lyft.
Lyft, Uber and Lyft. So Warren, keep telling those and all you young people, please understand, service is a top priority. IT, which I am very secondary educated on it, but look at right now, IT concerns. Look at the point that we've got to have more security specialists. If you guys have to go in training, advanced training, or go and be an employee to understand more about securities. And I'm talking about security for private citizens. I'm talking about security for the Pointer family or my neighbors. That is a top priority. Mr. Patrick, Mr. Chuck, philosophy reminds me of corporate America and the franchises. So let me be more simple. Let me be symptomatic about this. Shaquille O'Neal and Peyton Manning, they own hundreds and hundreds of pizza businesses and spray car washes. My point is, what I want to reveal to you guys, I bought a Sears hometown franchise several years ago. African American and Latino participation in ownership less than 1% nationwide. So here I come to the table with a franchise. Yes, they gave me, Chuck, the policies and the procedures of Sears being over 100 years old and being the dominant corporate retail company in the world. All right, they give you that strategy and they want you in your store. The stores are the makeups of the franchises were designed similar to a Dollar General store concept. My point is that, yes, we did the cookie cutter process, but because of my procurement background, I got out the door. I made sure my management, my staff understood my management, and I had a leader. I had a good manager that we communicated effectively. But I went out the door, I landed a 5-year, multi-million-dollar HUD contract to supply all the public housing authorities Kenmore appliances. I went on college campuses, the Voc-Ed 2-year college campuses. I sold, just as the two company that travels everywhere, Snap-on. I sold my Craftsman's tools, which are better quality tools. I sold them to the students. I sold them to the instructors. The students in Tennessee received, just like Kentucky students, I'm sure, they received scholarships. So $4,000 to $5,000 were spent on buying tools for their shops, so for their studies for 2 years. And my point is that I still want the econ students to know think outside of the box.
Mhm.
Don't you understand that there's principles, understand that there are laws,
Mhm.
respect them, but think outside of the box. Just don't be regulated to this is the way it's always, this is the way it's always been, this is the way I have to still think it and format it and bring it into existence, either small corporations or large corporations. You can do a lot better with new advanced stages. And I think everything's going to be great. And I'm going to say this lastly, Mr. Patrick, I would like to participate in any and all of the events that you're dedicating for the next few years with your
Done.
students. By all
Done.
means. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
done. I get your information from Warren and Cameron, and my email is easy, patrick@uky.edu.
Yes, sir.
If you
And
get, email me your contact
Cameron-
information, patrick@uky.
Cameron has my information.
Okay,
I'll connect you guys.
thank you, Cameron.
No problem. No problem. I know we're wrapping up on time, John, and I know you wanted to touch on this a little bit more. Also, gets back to the topic NFL as well. So I'll let you touch on this and
Okay.
continue to pour questions in, guys, if you have any questions.
You beautiful entrepreneurs, always, as I said, think on the edge, think outside of the box. This notation I've got here, a nice, beautiful picture of Cleveland Clinic, one of the premier clinics in America. Cleveland, as you all know, is in Cleveland, Ohio, in the northeastern parts of the United States. Well, right now, they've got a huge contract with the former NFL players for different varieties of overall health and wellness. And this goes to your healthcare students as well. Go to the next page. Because I'm a graduate of Vanderbilt and because they have an executive administrator of diversity and inclusiveness, an outstanding gentleman, I pitched him. I pitched the fact that, hey, detailed documentation claims that 48% of former professional athletes, particularly NFL players and Americans who played in the CFL like yours truly, we're from the South. We're from the southeastern part of the United States. Why don't we, University Medical Center, apply for a contract with the NFL to take care of some of the existing or potential healthcare issues and concerns that these former players have? And what I wrote as an entrepreneur, I can help. I can help. I can help in recruitment. I can help in so many other split off mannerisms in this process. But you've got to let major entities such as Vanderbilt, or if you want to take care of feeding everybody in your neighborhood from your home, starting off with your small business, you got to let them know you're available. And that's what I let the administrator from Vanderbilt know. I just sent that today. I sent that this morning. So that's just a thought. Hey, I could help. And see, let me tell you, being an American who played in the Canadian Football League, the next time you guys hear someone who's been a former pro player, see if they played in the CFL. There are no support mechanisms once we cross that border to come back in the US. Everything is up there in Canada. And that's a facade. There are so many affiliations that need to be utilized to help Americans who may have orthopedic or economic issues and concerns, or mental health care concerns, just as NFL or NCAA former players as well.
That was perfect, John. Well, if there aren't any more questions, is there any more questions before I go ahead and wrap this up? Any thoughts?
I'm proud of each and every one of you all. you're hearing from an old school entrepreneur that's still trying to make it. And listen, let me tell you, bank accounts don't mean a thing. Your prestige don't mean a thing. You've got to do it because you love it, and you've got to sacrifice. Now, don't sacrifice, even though your family may not understand you, and your friends, your close friends may not understand you. Love them, continue to love them, but you've got to be around people such as these great people amongst you, your fellow students, your administrators who are willing to help you. You got to be around them, and you will make it. I guarantee you will make it. It sounds like a sales job, but I mean it. You can make it. You can make it. Each and every one of you all. Evan, Alex, Brendan, Kendall, Kevin, Michelle, Constantine. You guys can make it. Landon, you can make Tucker. I want you guys to tell me several years from now, when you're out there and in America, hey man, you came and you spoke to our university, through Zoom. I want to get that feeling, because we entrepreneurs all have that feeling. We all have that same feeling, I assure you. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. I will definitely pass the floor back to Warren and Chuck. I'm sure they want to say a few remarks, before we hop off. So, Warren, pass it back to you.
Well, thank you, Cameron. First, thank you for bringing this to our attention and leading the way in getting this put together. Very much appreciated. And we're going to keep up with you with the Acumen Media. And then, John, thank you for the inspirational words that you had for us today. Very much appreciated. And thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.